Hi, thanks for watching part two of our series called The Trump is a Racist Lie. On this episode, we're going to take a look at Trump's record on race prior to him becoming president. And you might be surprised to learn that before he ever ran for president as a Republican, not only did Black community leaders not perceive Trump to be a racist, but before he ran for president, some of them actually praised him for being a champion for poor minority communities. And in the third and final episode, we'll take a look at Trump's record and everything he has done for the Black community after becoming president. But first, just want to let you know you're watching Liberty Awakened. We're a new group, and our purpose is to organize a movement to disrupt the virtual monopoly that the political left has on the flow of information to you, the American public, through their monopoly on media, technology, and our education system. And as you know, there are always two sides to every story, but unfortunately, these areas are so heavily dominated by various left-wing Marxist viewpoints that most people don't even realize that they're only getting one side of the story. So we're here to give you the other side of the story so that you can have a balanced view and make up your own mind. Now, if you like what we're doing, don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us at Liberty Awakened on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Parler, which is the new censorship-free social media that you should definitely check out. That's Parler with an E. And if you want to fact check this video, use the new search engine DuckDuckGo so you can get unbiased results, as Google will mostly just give you left-wing results. So with that said, let's dive into it. Did people generally think Donald Trump was a racist before he ran for president in 2016? And the answer is no. I bet you never heard from the media that Black political activists, most notably Jesse Jackson, invited Trump to be his guest of honor, not once, but twice, at an annual conference hosted by his what's called the Rainbow Push Coalition. And their mission, according to their website, is I quote, a multiracial, multi-issue, progressive, international membership organization fighting for social change. Now, here's a video of Jesse Jackson introducing Trump as his guest of honor for representing diversity on Wall Street and being inclusive of Black Americans in 1998 and 1999. So here's that video, and Donald Trump does speak in the video as well.
I do want to express thanks to you, Donald Trump, for being with us tonight. We need your building skills, your gusto, your rent package for people on Wall Street who represent diversity. And we thank you for coming tonight. Let's give Donald Trump a big hand. A big hand for Donald Trump. I now want to bring forth a friend who has, well, he is deceptive in that his social style is of such. One can miss his seriousness, and his commitment for their success is beyond argument. When we opened this Wall Street project and we talked about it, he gave us space at 40 Wall Street, which was to make a statement about our having a presence there. And beyond that, in terms of reaching out and being inclusive, he's done that too. And created for many people a comfort zone when I ran for the presidency in 84 and 88. And many others thought it was either laughable or something to avoid. He came to our business meeting here in New York because he has this sense of the curious and a will to risk to make things better. And so aside from all of his style and his pizzazz, he's a serious person who's an effective builder of building with a builder of people. Last year he was a part of our workshop, of our panel workshop on what are the challenges and opportunities. And so this, a year later, Donald Trump, for a few minutes, challenges and opportunities to embrace the underserved communities. Donald Trump.
I will tell you, a large percentage of the people, and especially in construction, that are building these great jobs are black and minorities, and I'm very proud of it. We have close to 25%, and I think the number's going up, and they do a great job. There are no better builders than we have in New York, and a big percentage of that is black and minority folks. So I just want to thank everybody in the room for being here. I look forward to some questions, and then I don't know how we're ever going to leave this building today, because if you look outside, it is terrible, but we'll figure a way. There's always a way, and thank you, Jesse, and congratulations.
And do those words sound like the words of a racist to you? They do not to me. Back then, Jesse Jackson was one of the most well-known leaders in the black community. He even ran for president a few times. And in fact, Jackson and Trump worked with Ross Perot in helping to get the Reform Party up and running and on the map. That was in the late 90s. Both were actually considering, and I'm talking both Jackson and Trump considered presidential runs as third-party candidates on the Reform Party platform, which was, as I said, founded by Ross Perot. However, Trump and Jackson ultimately decided to leave the Reform Party, and that was specifically because KKK leader David Duke joined the party in support of Pat Buchanan, who also wanted to run on the Reform Party ticket. And on that note, here's what Trump said about David Duke to NBC's Matt Lauer in an interview in 2000. Here's that video.
Most of this morning, Donald Trump. After months of toying with the idea of running for president on the Reform Party ticket, the billionaire real estate developer has finally made a decision. I sat down with Donald Trump and asked him what he's going to do.
I've made my decision. I'm not going to be running. The party is, as you know, self-destructing. Jesse has left, and that's a problem. And so I will not be running.
Not running for the nomination of the Reform Party, or not considering any run for the presidency this time around?
Not considering a run.
Nothing could change your mind with that?
No, totally not.
When you say the party is self-destructing, what do you see as the biggest problem with the Reform Party right now?
Well, you've got David Duke just joined, a bigot, a racist, a problem. I mean, this is not exactly the people you want in your party. Buchanan's a disaster, as we've
So not only did Trump denounce David Duke as a racist and withdraw from the Reform Party on that basis, but in another interview on CNN with Larry King, King asked Trump who he would pick as his running mate if he were to run for president at some point, and guess who he said he would pick? Watch this video to find out. You might be surprised.
You have a vice presidential candidate in mind?
Well, I really haven't gotten quite there yet.
It's just you
Oprah. I love Oprah. Oprah would always be my first choice.
Oprah.
Oprah, your competitor, right? Your
Oprah's a competitor.
You know what?
No one.
I'll tell you, she's really a great woman, though. She is a terrific woman. She's somebody that's very special. I have not even thought about it. I guess we'll see. We'll see. Maybe that's part of the whole process.
So let's just be clear. Trump, who, according to the media, is a hateful, evil racist, when asked in 2000 who he would want as his running mate if he were to run for president, said Oprah, a black female, and he called her brilliant and said many other nice things about her. Kind of hard to believe that someone who's a racist would say that. Oprah actually had Trump on her show in the late 80s and asked him whether he would consider running for president at some point. This video is actually really interesting because when he talks about why he would want to run, first, Oprah appears to me, at least, to be supportive of Trump's presidential aspirations. I highly doubt Oprah would have had someone she thought was a racist on her show and would appear to be supportive of his political aspirations. Another thing that's interesting about this clip, too, is just how consistent Donald Trump has been over the years in why he wanted to run for president. He says he wanted to stop other countries from taking advantage of the United States and resolve our trade imbalance and just all the other ways countries take advantage of us. So here's Donald Trump on Oprah.
Markets and everything. It's not free trade. If you ever go to Japan right now and try to sell something, forget about it, Oprah. Just forget about it. It's almost impossible. They don't have laws against it. They just make it impossible. They come over here, they sell their cars, their VCRs, they knock the hell out of our companies. And hey, I have tremendous respect for the Japanese people. I mean, you can respect somebody that's beating the hell out of you, but they are beating the hell out of this country. Kuwait, they live like kings. The poorest person in Kuwait, they live like kings. And yet they're not paying. We make it possible for them to sell their oil. Why aren't they paying us 25% of what they're making? It's a joke.
This sounds like political presidential talk to me, and I know people have talked to you about whether or not you want to run. Would you ever?
Probably not, but I do get tired of seeing the country ripped off.
Why would you not?
I just don't think I really have the inclination to do it. I love what I'm doing. I really like it.
Also, it doesn't pay as well.
No, it doesn't. But, you know, I just probably wouldn't do it, Oprah. I probably wouldn't, but I do get tired of seeing what's happening with this country. And if it got so bad, I would never want to rule it out totally, because I really am tired of seeing what's happening with this country, how we're really making other people live like kings, and we're not.
What do you think?
Another little known fact that you won't hear from Trump on the mainstream media is that when he opened his Mar-a-Lago private club in Palm Beach, Florida, none of the other private clubs in the area allowed black or gay members, and many of them also did not allow Jews. Now, Donald Trump made his club, his Mar-a-Lago club, the first club in the area to allow membership for blacks, Jews, and openly gay couples. And just so you know, I'm not making this up by citing to some crazy pro-Trump biased source. I'm going to read to you from a January 8th, 2019 Washington Post article that was actually meant to bash Trump. It's entitled, "Palm Beach Used to Be a Nice Town for Billionaires, Then Trump Came Along." If you open this piece, buried about 2/3 of the way into this fairly long article, is this nice little quote. It says, Trump opened Mar-a-Lago as a private club in 1995. Unlike the Everglades or Bath and Tennis clubs, which did not admit Jewish members, and the Palm Beach Country Club, which admitted wealthy Jews, Mar-a-Lago was open to anyone. Basically, he didn't care who came in as long as they could pay for it, explains a Palm Beach social expert. Money may have been the motive, but Trump's open door policy, his was the first club to accept African Americans and openly gay couples, began the slow process to diversify other clubs in town. Now, I love this editorialized assumption about Donald Trump's motives with regard to making money. I mean, of course he wants to make money. He's a businessman. But guess who else wanted to make money in Palm Beach by owning private clubs? Everyone else who owned a private club in Palm Beach. I mean, are you telling me the other club owners in Palm Beach were not in business to make money? Yet, Donald Trump was the first to admit blacks, Jews, and gays. Does that sound like a bigot to you? There are also tons of anecdotes out there from various black people and other persons of color about random acts of kindness received from Trump. And one of the most poignant is from a homeless black woman who claims that Trump allowed her to live rent-free in Trump Tower for 8 years. According to her story, Trump Tower management, once they discovered she was squatting there, called the police to remove the woman from Trump Tower. They also notified Trump, who apparently then came down, talked to the woman, and told her she could continue to live for free in Trump Tower, and then he provided her with 3 meals a day and fresh flowers in her room every day. Now, I'm not going to play her video clip because she talks really slow, and it kind of takes her a long time to get her story out. But if you like, you can find the video if you search for homeless Trump Tower squatter speaks out. It's a pretty poignant video. I actually teared up a little myself. But, I should note that if you look on Snopes and other, fact-checking sites like PolitiFact that are kind of actually well known for taking a leftist point of view as well, they note there's nothing to corroborate her story and some of these other stories. So you can take it with a grain of salt. But the irony of this is that the mainstream media regularly publishes anecdotal stories just like this, but they're negative towards Trump, and they also have zero corroborating evidence. So I think it's only fair just to point out there are good ones out there about him too, for the point that, these anecdotes are really kind of just a wash, because there's good ones and bad ones. As an example, just this last week, The Atlantic magazine, which is run by a major anti-Trump Democrat donor, ran a hit piece on Trump, which claimed that he refused to visit the gravesite of Marines who died in the historic Battle of Belleau Wood during World War II, because he thinks Americans who died in war are, quote, losers and suckers. And what did they use to back the story up? Well, it was based on the testimony of 4 anonymous eyewitness observers. How convenient. We just have to take the clearly Trump-hating Atlantic at its word. And guess what? Since that story ran, the White House has dug up emails and other written records showing unequivocally that the reason Trump didn't visit the gravesite was because the weather that day prevented a safe flight on the helicopter. Marine, I think it's Marine One is the helicopter. And I'm quoting from an internal White House email that said, "We are at bad weather. Call for today's lift." And within within hours, 8 witnesses with firsthand knowledge stated on the record that they were there, and Trump never said those things. And they confirmed that Trump was disappointed that the trip had to be canceled due to weather. And, if you've ever been to a Trump rally, watched the Republican convention, and anything about Trump's record on veterans, he is extremely pro-veteran. He's reformed the VA in ways that are amazing, where veterans can actually get the benefits that they deserve now because of Trump. So this idea that Trump despises veterans and thinks you're a loser if you died in war, that's just ridiculous. And there's nothing to back it up. And the evidence suggests the obvious, obviously. Sorry, I meant to say suggest the opposite, obviously. But this is exactly the kind of despicable fake news that you hear blasted 24/7 from the mainstream media. And if you watched all the networks and read the articles from the mainstream outlets, you would never get this other side of the story that I just gave you. They don't want you to see it, and that's why we're doing what we're doing. We're here to give you the other side of the facts. Now, on that note, I want to leave you with another anecdote from a TV personality, Judge Joe Brown, who, when asked in an interview whether he thinks Donald Trump is a racist, he says emphatically, "No, I don't think so." And then he tells a story about how Trump personally helped a group of black businessmen who couldn't get loans to start their businesses from banks. So they went to Donald Trump, who not only gave them the loans, but later forgave those same loans and told them to thank him by running their businesses. So here's Judge Joe Brown with that testimony.
Is Trump a racist?
I don't think so. I've talked to a number of black entrepreneurs who back in the late 80s and 90s, early 90s, were trying to get financing. They couldn't. Somebody told them to go check with Donald Trump. So they come back and tell me they got a loan from Donald Trump. He gave them a term loan. Show up with the interest and the principal, one check, but they had to go see him personally. They independently relate this tale that when they saw him, he said, "This what you supposed to pay me? This our agreement?" I said, "Yeah." And then tore the check up, shook their hands, and congratulations. Now run your business.
And we don't know for sure whether stories like this are true, but there are a lot of these anecdotes to counter the negative anecdotes that are constantly cited by the mainstream media. So I think it's only fair to conclude that all of these uncorroborated anecdotes are basically a wash, and at the very least, they should all be taken with a grain of salt. In any case, the evidence of Donald Trump's past prior to him running for president as a Republican does not in any remote way paint a picture of someone who is a racist, and in fact, it's quite the opposite. And to close, it would be unfair of me not to mention one incident that the media loves to point out about Trump's past. And it was when he took out 4 major New York newspaper ads about the Central Park Five, which you may have heard about. These were 5 youths, like Utes. I don't know if you've ever seen, My Cousin Vinny? 5 Utes accused of raping and beating a woman jogging through Central Park. They beat her within an inch of her life. It was a horrible crime. There were 7 other victims that were violently assaulted in Central Park at the same time. At the time, it was the most widely publicized crime in the nation because it was so shockingly violent. And at the time that Trump ran these ads, though, the police had confessions from the Central Park Five, and they were about to be indicted. They hadn't even had the trial yet. Not all the facts and evidence had come out. But even so, there were newspapers all over the country running this story with how these youths had committed the crime and confessed to it. And, as it turns out, tragically, and it was very tragic, years later, DNA evidence has exonerated the Central Park Five. But at the time, many newspapers were running with the story, and many Americans, like Trump, had a very emotional, knee-jerk reaction to this violent crime, and all they heard was that the suspects had confessed to it. So with that in mind, I think it's a bit unfair. I think it's actually really unfair to call Trump a racist over this event when, like so many other well-meaning Americans at the time, he believed they had confessed and had committed the crime. And you can say that's racist, but there's really no evidence that it was anything other than just a visceral, emotional response to an incomplete version of the story. And I will point out too, it's not unlike the reaction so many people have to recent police shootings in this present day and age. People go out to riot and loot before they get the full story. And that's not racist. That's just reacting without all the facts. And so many of us do it. And it just needs to stop on both sides. We just need to stop reacting before we get all the facts. These days everyone's reacting without getting the other side of the story. So whenever you hear something crazy come out in the news that gives you this emotional response, I encourage you, take a deep breath, tell yourself, I'm going to wait for all the facts to come out before I make a judgment on this issue. Then I would encourage you to, do some searching on DuckDuckGo so you get a balanced result. A great site you can look at is Real Clear Politics. Their front page of Real Clear Politics, it gives you a bunch of articles from both sides of the issue so you can kind of read and compare and get a balanced understanding. But I want to close by saying you just can't believe this media narrative that you constantly get about Trump. Yes, he insults people who attack him. Yes, he often says things that are insensitive and just don't sound great. But there is simply no evidence that Trump is a racist. I would never support a racist for president. I've studied this topic carefully and extensively, and I can't say extensively, but everything he's said that the media twists and tries to make you think that Trump is a racist has a perfectly non-racist reason for whatever it was that he said or did, and you're just not getting the other side of it. Now, if you have an example that you think something Trump did or said that is clearly racist or clearly bigoted, then send us a DM, post a comment. We'll take a look at it. We're happy to do that. So thanks for watching, and look for the third and final part of this series where I will examine Trump's record showing how he has done more for the Black community than any president in recent history. Thanks again for watching.